Okay, thank you. As soon as I see the banner, I'll make a start then. It normally tells us, doesn't it? There you go. There you go. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, prior to the commencement of business of the committee, the chairman reads out the following statement. I didn't have to read that, did I? May I remind everybody present that the meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded by the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they please put their hand up if they can be seen, or use the raised hand use the chat function. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and to grab the attention of the chairman or Democratic Services Officer only. If a participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, they should let the chairman or Democratic Officer know as soon as is possible. If they have a webcam, they should try turning this off, as this may help the broadband with streaming. I don't believe we have any public speakers today, Mark. Am I right in that?
Yeah, there are no public speakers registered today, Chair.
Welcome to anybody that is viewing from outside. This is the first planning committee we've done live streaming, so let's hope it all goes swimmingly. So from there, onto the agenda then. Apologies for absence. Do we have any?
I don't have any, Chair.
No, and I'm not seeing any hands up or anybody wanting to give any apologies, so we will take it that there are none. Agenda item 2 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of April. Are you happy that I sign these as a correct?
Move and note, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, and to receive declarations of interest, please. Andrew Parker has one.
Yes, Chair, I declare an interest on item 7, Hensel Cottage, and will be leaving the meeting.
Thank you, Andrew. And I see Nick's hand up. Nick?
Yep, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to declare on item 8, 14 Friars Road, 2021 002954. The applicant, of course, is a fellow ward member and personal friend.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So you will leave at that point?
I will leave. Yeah.
Conveniently, it's at the end of the meeting anyway. So we won't be able to say goodbye to you, but that'll work nicely. Okay. So if there are no other sorry, I should have turned that off. No then. No other declarations. I don't see any more hands up. No. That means we can move on to business then. And agenda item 4, building regulation applications, determined by the head of regeneration under delegated powers. Are you happy to note?
Yeah, move and note, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda 5 is planning applications determined, again, under delegated powers. Are you happy to note?
I'd move and note that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 6 is the trees, again, delegated list.
I'd move and note that, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And that brings us on to agenda item 7. So, Andrew, are you leaving us? Can we see if Andrew has left?
Bear with me, Chair. I believe he has, but I'll just double check the list.
Yeah, I can't see him on my list.
Yeah, he's left, Chair.
Okay, right. So, hopefully, Marcus Goldsworthy is going to introduce this to us. Now, I know Marcus has been having a few problems with his internet today, so fingers crossed that it'll all hold up, but if it doesn't, we do have a backup plan. So I'll hand over to Marcus, and he's going to introduce agenda item 7.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think everything is sorted now. It was a turn the box on and off issue, and seems to be working again. So,
we call it a 3-pin reset, Marcus.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah. So this is actually a report for authorising enforcement action in respect of land and buildings at Hensel Castle, Well St Donats. If you don't mind, I'll share the report on the screen if that's okay with you, because there are some relevant photos in there. So just bear with me 1 second. I think that should be sharing on the screen.
Yes, that's up.
Fantastic. Right. So this relates to a building that was granted planning permission originally on the early in 2019 under reference 2019-696 for a stable block. Before I proceed, just one point of note: there is late representations received, and it's actually relevant to that previous planning application. The late representations are from the agent acting for the person who's constructed the stable block, and I believe the applicant of that application. They raise concerns about the officer's report and around the fact that there have been some negotiations around the nature of the building that's being constructed in relation to that original consent. What I just wanted to advise is that we do note that there are ongoing discussions, and that's picked up in the response to the agent's concerns. But I think it's worth noting that the position is that what's being constructed in no way or shape reflects what was approved in 2019. And although those negotiations are ongoing, we do as a council clearly have to have a baseline advising that what has been constructed is unacceptable in its current form, notwithstanding the fact that negotiations are ongoing. The report does refer to those negotiations. The agent had particular concern about the fact that the report makes reference to it being a stable building, but doesn't reference the fact that as part of the original approval, there was reference to a machinery store. Now, that is picked up in the comments, but I will deal with that in the report as we go through it. So obviously those comments are for noting from the agent. We do note them. We have a response to them in the late representations as well. I'm happy to take any questions on that if when we've been through the report. So just to point that out to members. The breach the application was approved in 2019, 4th of September 2019, and was a fairly traditional stable building in terms of its character and appearance. You'll see stable doors and double doors at one end, which was the machinery store end. Fairly low-key building, but not unusual in rural Vale. However, we received a complaint, which the report deals with, and that was that the roof had been constructed in slates and that there were Velux windows installed, that it was higher than the originally approved building, and that there were additional openings and different door openings to those shown on the approved plans. The site was visited, and I will move on just so members can see. Just to point out that when the site was visited, a domestic ride-on lawnmower was noted within there, as were assorted power tools and other personal protective equipment and garden tools. The photos below or on the screen you should see now will show that inside a vaulted ceiling had been constructed with timber exposed, ornamental, if you like, timber beamwork. Obviously these Velux windows we previously referred to, plus another interesting point, low-level electric points were also installed in the part of the building that was due to be used as a stable. Moving to the front of the building, as we would describe it now, some of the openings which were shown as stable doors were now constructed as windows. And while that door was shown on the approved plans, clearly there is debate as to whether that could be quite easily installed as a patio door. So officers were extremely concerned that what had been constructed didn't mirror. Oh, one final missing point. You'll notice a log burning flue was installed in the corner of the building as well. So we did proceed to discuss this with the agents. I'll stop sharing that now. I don't think there's anything. There we go. So discussions have been held. Obviously, those have continued. The planning agent has indicated they're willing to negotiate over a resolution of the issue. But the fact remains that what's being constructed isn't what was approved. So that is an unauthorised building in the countryside, which does, to all intents and purposes, have the capability of being converted to a residential property, certainly. But in any event, is not what was originally approved. So we are seeking authorisation for enforcement action. Those negotiations which I've referred to and are referred to by the agent in the late representations will continue in the hope that we can get to a position where we don't need to serve an enforcement notice. But obviously, it would be useful and it would be prudent for the council to be in a position where, if should it need to, it can serve that enforcement notice. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Yes, very good. Ben Gray has his hand up. Ben, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. It was one minor point of error that I just spotted. Under item 4, it describes 3 Velux windows, but your photos under item 9 show 4. I don't know if that's just a typographical error. And to move off to recommendations, really, Chair, it's blatantly. I mean, maybe you want to look after your horses that grandly, but to my mind, this has all the trappings of a dwelling already, and a vaulted ceiling isn't a corrugated iron top for a stable, and it absolutely. The officers need this in their armoury to be able to deal with this application. Whether it can be dealt with by negotiation is immaterial to my mind. This is not being built in accordance with the plans. They may bring forward a planning application, and I will view that with open eyes if it comes back before us. But absolutely, move off to recommendations.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have a seconder? Well, I'm happy to second that anyway. So yeah. Yes, I mean, the only other thing I notice, it does seem to be cavity wall as well. So it does make me smile a little. Anyway, if anybody has no other comment, I will ask you, are you happy to go with officer's recommendation? I will take it that it is a unanimous unless I hear some dissent. I can see lots of thumbs going up and no hands up to talk. So I think I've given you enough time. We will say that has passed unanimously, and we will move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 8. We need to make sure now that Andrew is contacted and brought back to us. I don't know. I think Mark was going to ring him. Mark, were you?
Yeah, I can give him a call now, Chair.
I've just told him he's on his way back in.
Super. Okay.
Thanks, Gareth.
Gareth, thank you very much. So we'll just have a little pause now until we see that Andrew is back in the room. Vicky's ready to go on this one. I can't see Andrew back yet. No. No. This is the only shame about the online meetings. We do have a little bit of a pause when people have to leave and come back.
Got a big house, has he?
I don't know. He seems to be lost somewhere. I'll give him one more minute, and if he's not back in, we'll have to continue. It's not great. Gareth, did you get hold of him?
I did, Chair. He was literally joining that minute. I'll give him another call back now. See.
Okay, thank you. Definitely not on my list.
No, he's not on at the moment, Chair.
He's not, no. And the trouble is, if we start this, he won't be able to vote on it. But I am concerned about time and whatever. So unless he's on in the next 20 seconds, I think he's going to miss this next item.
Hello, Chair. Councillor Parker is literally joining now, but he said he's happy for the meeting to continue without him.
Okay, all right then. Well, we will continue.
Chair, sorry,
Yeah.
I guess he'll still be able to speak on this application, just won't be able to vote because obviously it's to do with Cowbridge.
That is correct. Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct. No, he's still not in yet, is he? No. Okay, so I think Vicky, are you presenting this? No, you're not. Are you?
I think Ian is going to present it.
Ian is presenting this. Is he Ian?
Yes.
Are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. So this is the land at Beggars Pound, Cowbridge, and Ian is going to tell us all about it. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, just to let members know, there's one matter arising for this application, which is a fairly minor amendment to Condition 8. Condition 8 is a condition related to investigations to deal with any contamination in the land, and the change is as simple as just changing the date relating to the geotechnical document that's referred to in the condition. So it's not really a substantive change, it's just a minor one to change the date referred to.
Little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah. Okay, great. So this is an outline application with all matters reserved for 3,000 square metres of B1 floor space at land known as Beggars Pound, which is just north of the settlement of St Athan. The plan on the screen now shows the red line. The settlement boundary, the village, is immediately to the south. You can see the relatively recently constructed residential estate on the western side of the main road, just below the blue line. In between that and the site, you've got a fairly heavy bank of trees, which we may see on a photo to come. So as I said, it's 3,000 square metres of B1 floor space, and B1, just for clarification, relates to light industry, offices and kind of research and development. So it's not the heavy industrial uses that we sometimes see on industrial estates, which are allocated for B1 and B2 uses. So it's just B1. Yeah, this plan here shows the kind of the area of trees just between the residential estate and the site. The application, as I say, is an outline. There's indicative plans that show kind of indicative siting of buildings. There's parameters which suggest the buildings could be up to 10 metres high and anything from between 12 and 16 by 25 to 50 in footprint. The layout, as I said, it is indicative, but it also shows indicative open space amounting to just over 1/4 of a hectare, which is in accordance with the council's policies. There's a widened access proposed onto the main road. So there's an existing vehicular access from the site directly onto Cowbridge Road. This application proposes to widen it to improve vehicle movements into and from the site. The plan on the screen now is an indicative parking plan. So this application doesn't seek approval of, things like detailed parking numbers or detailed locations of car parks. It merely seeks to demonstrate that sufficient parking can be accommodated in principle within the site. Can we just scroll down to the next plan? Not sure what that one is.
No.
There we go. There's the access plan, which just shows the swept path showing vehicles coming in and out of the site. A development of this size does trigger Section 106 requirements. So in this case, there's public art and training and development, which are covered by a site-wide strategy, which Welsh Government are implementing across the whole of their part of the enterprise zone. There's public open space, which I mentioned, which the applicant has shown can be provided on site in accordance with policy and our SPG. And finally, and probably of most interest, is sustainable transport, Rather than a financial contribution, which would have been, I think, 60 or 70,000, because of viability issues, there's not proposed to be a financial sum, but instead, the Welsh Government as applicant are offering to transfer at zero cost a 4-metre wide strip of land that runs from the junction of Eglwys Brewis Road and Cowbridge Road in a westerly direction. That's what that plan was here. Yep. In a westerly direction for approximately 3/4 of a kilometre to just shy of the access into the residential development. Now that would enable a combined footway cycleway to be delivered in the future. This application doesn't provide that footway cycleway. The application isn't of a scale which could justify the cost of providing it, but without the land we wouldn't be able to provide it in the first place. The council has been undertaking feasibility work and has received funding for feasibility and design work for this route, but the provision of the land at zero cost for best part of a kilometre is considered to be an acceptable in lieu provision rather than the financial contribution in this case. I think that's about it. Obviously, if members have got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I understand that Councillor Parker didn't miss your introduction, so I think we should be happy. Neil,
Yes,
your hand up.
That's correct, Chairman. I actually got in just before Ian started.
Okay, so I got 2 hands up. The first one, oh no, that's gone down. So they're going up and down, up and down. I have Councillor Rhiannon Birch's hand up. Councillor Birch.
Actually, it's Councillor Mark Wilson here.
Oh, well, it says Councillor Birch on my list. That's
I know, we share the computer together, you see. Reducing the environmental impact. Just a couple of issues here. I mean, I'm actually quite supportive of this application because I'm hopeful it will bring employment opportunities to this area, and there's also a really good synergy with the airport being nearby as well, and with the aerospace development. And I really feel that this is something that we do need in the Vale of Glamorgan. So I'm very supportive of this application.
Thank you, Mark. I see Councillor Neil Thomas would like to come in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just as a very brief query, the proposed footpath that they're talking about is actually on MOD land, and I can't see that was it's referenced in the report, but I can't see that there's been clarification whether MOD are actually going to hand it over.
I think Ian will tell us all about it, but as I understand it, it is Welsh Government owned land, MOD land.
Yeah, that's right, Chair. It's land that Welsh Government are in control of, and sorry, I should have probably said for completeness, they're proposing to set the fence line back, so that it redefines the boundary of their site, but it is in Welsh Government's control. Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, I have Ben Gray's hand next. Ben.
Chair, I was going to move off to recommendations. I think this is a good outline proposal.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Parker. He would like to say something. Andrew?
I'll second that, but actually, if anybody is in doubt as to the adopted highway, if you actually refer to the drawing number 2099, which I think is number 4, it's quite clear on there that that line, the fence is going to be set back, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Andrew, for seconding and clarifying. I then have Councillor Williams, I believe, would like to speak.
Yes, thank you. Just a recognition that offer of that land makes that road, which is one of the pinch points between the Enterprise Park, particularly the Aston Martin and Pigston, towards the new estate and whatever, is a massive improvement, which we probably wouldn't have got any other way. So I'm really pleased that rather than have some funds which we'll struggle to utilise for active travel, that's been an excellent provision. So that's good news. Thank you. Support the application.
Yeah, it's all part of the bigger plan, isn't it? Hopefully we will get some Welsh Government funding or on further planning applications. I'm sure we will be able to deliver it at a later date, but without the land we couldn't do it. So it's there for us to sort. Okay, no one else has a hand up. I have a mover and a seconder. I am going to say that unless I hear from anybody in the next 30 seconds, I will take it that it goes through unanimously. No hands up and no one's shouting and screaming at me. So I think we can safely say that that one goes through officer's recommendation with a unanimous vote again. Thank you very much. So we're on to Plot C, Atlantic Trading Estate, Barry. It's a Reg 3 application, and is Kerry rather going to do this one?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll. Oh yeah, you shared it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the a council-made application. It's for a resource recovery facility located Atlantic Trading Estate around the Bendrix end. So it's currently vacant land, which is in an industrial area, and it's got access through predominantly the Hayes. So what the facility would be is generally to deal with municipal waste, so domestic streams, recycling, and so forth. So the majority would be pre-sorted, but there'd be some sorting on the site of metals into different types of metals, etc. And there'd also be some storage of other items. So it is proposed to accept organic waste, residual black bag waste, but only as a storage function. So they'd be, sealed in containers by the collection vehicles, and then bulk transferred then onto processing at other sites. The bulk of it is going to be processed off-site, so it's more of a handling and a transfer facility rather than for anything else. The layout you see here, there's the main storage building, which is the large blue-shaped, L-shaped building on the southern side. There's a further storage building to the north, and a third smaller one just to the left-hand side of the picture there. And the remainder is the access through route, which goes in a loop, and external sort of operational areas as well. So yeah, that's the main of it in the gist. I think the main storage building's 11.2 meters tall proposed. The other ones would be slightly smaller, shorter. They'd be single story, but predominantly they just need the clearance there to get vehicles in and out. So I think that's about it in summary. But obviously, if there's any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Yes, right. Thank you very much. I will ask committee now. Have they any questions? Obviously, this is well needed, and it's in the right place. It's in an industrial area close to our existing site. Councillor Gray, Councillor Hodges as well. Nick had his hand up first, so I'll go to Nick first, please.
So thank you, Chairman. Interesting application. Obviously, as you said, it's a Reg 3. Now, I've had through the last couple of months, I've been down the Atlantic Trading Estate quite a lot, making use of our own civic dump down there. So I've had a good look at what's been going on down there. And then one of the first things that greets you when you sort of enter the general Atlantic Trading Estate is a big sign saying 40 new commercial units are going to be on offer, and that's to be both recognised and applauded, because that means hopefully jobs. It does concern me, however, this application. Now, it's a Reg 3, it's our own application, therefore I feel I should be able to speak more openly on what I feel are the present shortcomings, and I'm looking for reassurances over some of them. Now, I look at the objections from Barry Town Council, and I echo some of them for starters. One of my main issues, firstly, is that the roads leading to virtually the whole of the Atlantic Trading Estate are unsuitable, and in fact are at the moment breaking down. Some of the roads around the the roundabouts there are in a shocking state. And that surely is being caused by the increasing number of HGV vehicles, chemical vehicles, and everything else that use the site, and the weight of them is causing all sorts of issues. Now, you're also aware, of course, as a planning committee, there's been additional house building in the area. They're in the process of building many of them as we speak. And it starts to get to an issue, I think, where you have the competing pressures of house building, residential use, and industrial use. Also, there is note made here of the excessive opening hours. I mean, in an average week, it looks like it could be up to 76 hours a week. Now, that might be necessary to do the work. It's there, but that is starting to, I think, impinge on the lifestyle of the people that will live and are living down there. So that does concern me, and I'm wondering, do we need quite as many hours as that? Now, the operation, I am told in the report, is subject to an environmental permit. I'd like to know a bit more information about how that is progressing and what stage that's at. And I think the only other issue I've got currently is that, wait for it, just the scale. In fact, I wonder and I worry about some of the uses of the new commercial units that will be coming on, and in fact whether they would be the style and what we all get will be impacted by constantly going for waste and waste recovery and things like that. And I'm also worried, I have concerns, and I'd like a notice on that. We've heard on a number of occasions about some of these waste recovery storage facilities going up in flames in the Vale, and I'd like to know what the state of play is over mitigation towards that. That's basically it, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I think I'll let Kerry come back and answer those if he's happy to. Kerry, are you all right with that?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. You might need to remind me as I go along, but on the last point, the council will need to secure an environmental permit. That's a separate process that would be dealt with by Natural Resources Wales. So I don't, the first hurdle is I suppose planning permission, and then, but I know in the background the Waste Service are, preparing what they need to in order to make an application for that. One of those things would include a fire prevention management plan, which would detail, but basically it's the bones of the day-to-day running of it. So what measures are in place to prevent fire, because it is, and I know probably where you're referring to there, and it can be a risk where you've got material stored for a significant amount of time. But in the main, it's not designed to hold weight of a significant amount of time. It's for baling storage that maybe for 24 hours, 48 hours in some instances. Like the residual waste, for example, before sending them on. But I think the main thing we have to be concerned with the planning application is the layout acceptable. So can fire appliances access the site? Are the buildings, is there enough space between the buildings and neighbouring buildings? And it might be, well, certainly I think that it's satisfactory in that respect. So I think the other points you mentioned were the HGV access. I suppose that's always I think when it comes to the condition of the road, I think that's that's a responsibility of the council, as in the highway authority, really, to maintain the road. I mean, it is an industrial area. I think it's expected that the traffic would be using these routes. I think if the routes are if the geometry is okay and the traffic volumes are okay, I think that I think we have to accept that in principle that it's okay and the site's access is acceptable in that respect.
I think
you mentioned, sorry, go on.
Trading hours as well was mentioned.
Yeah, that's it. I think I am. I guess they're not here to speak, but I am assured that that's the minimum the waste service need in order to operate the site. They don't intend to be working fully from 7 a.m., but they do need to be on site. So the staff need to arrive at 6 a.m. in order to prepare for the domestic collections before going out. But that's approximately 7 a.m. So it's a fairly early start, and it's quite a long day for them. So I think it does need to be those are we have discussed the hours with SRS from a noise perspective, and they're satisfied with the hours as well. So I think we have considered that, and I think they're acceptable as is. There are a number of properties on Bendrick Road, so there has been a noise assessment undertaken, also an odour assessment. Both of those have been reviewed by SRS in a sort of technical capacity, and they commented back that those are acceptable in terms of the noise impact. So it probably would be audible, but there's a general background level, and I have been on Bendrick Road, so you can hear the estate, but I don't think it would be, or it's certainly not modelled to be above that. So it should, the noises should be, they should be acceptable and shouldn't result in complaints. But were there any other points I've missed there? Or?
No, I think that covered it. I think what we'll do now, I've got a lot of people with hands up. Mark and Rhiannon have a hand up. Ian Johnson, Ben Gray, Pam Drake, and Neil Thomas. So I think what I'll do, I'll let them all come in now, and we'll try and, if you can try and jot down any points they raise, Kerry.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to you then to try and sum it all up, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay then, so next one is either Mark or Rhiannon, not sure who.
It's me. Yeah, just an observation really. I mean, I do totally understand where Councillor Hodges is coming from in terms of the road condition, and it does complicate matters. But of course, one of the main routes that people do use, whether they should use it or not, is open to debate and question, is the main road through the docks, which is, I understand, managed by ABP, and it is an issue which hasn't gone away. And if anything, you take your car's life in its hands, as it were, by the suspension, isn't it? On some bits, you don't slow down. And the other issue, which I know Councillor Hodges kind of referred to, but I think it's a very important point, is the issue of flooding, especially on Sullymores Road, which is another route going out. It is an issue, and it hasn't gone away. And every time we do have major downpours, which we've had fairly recently, that area does flood quite severely. And yet there doesn't seem to be anything either the council or ABP or anyone else involved can sort out. It does seem to have quite a high water table there. And I just wondered, perhaps, is there anything we could do to reduce the impact, bearing in mind, as Councillor Hodges did say, we're going to have lots of heavy good vehicles moving around the sites. But apart from that, I am very supportive of this application. I think it's a really good application to do. It's something that we have been in the news recently on the BBC News in particular about how well we are recycling. And I think this is something that the council is doing really well on. And I think this will further help. Thank you.
Mark. I've got Councillor Ian Johnson, who would like to speak next. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Kerry for the introduction. As a Barry councillor, I've been fortunate enough to have presentations on this, at the pre-application consultation stage, and a fair amount of discussion with officers about it on, at other points. I think the support for a resource recovery facility, that's something that needs to be in the Vale of Glamorgan. The tension is whether this is the right location for it, and that, as this is a Reg 3 application, I think is for me the crux of the matter. As I think Councillor Hodges already pointed out, we've added in a load of homes on the Bendricks. There's a Reg 3 application, so our application for another 53 houses that will be bypassed by the traffic going back and forth. So I think the real issue here is the tension between whether we want the Bendrix to be a housing location or whether we want the Bendrix to be an industrial location. And if we are flagging up that this is a good location for social housing, for which we have a lot of discussions about the need for that, then we also have to consider whether we are putting people in social housing and then driving large HGVs past their doors at early in the morning and fairly late into the evening. I think my concern really is that we've just jumped on a facility with which we are in control, and therefore we can easily adapt to our need for as an RRF, something which is obviously greatly needed. I don't feel that we've looked at the alternative options that might have been available. What we have from a transport perspective is bringing this amount of waste around from wherever around the Vale and then through a residential area, an area we are making increasingly residential, into an industrial area, and then taking it back out again, rather than finding a site which doesn't involve driving through a residential area in order to achieve its goals. The goals are laudable, the goals are right, but I think there's a tension in placing it on this site, on the Bendrix, because we are increasingly looking at putting housing on the Bendrix. We're driving large vehicles through there. It will not always be particularly great times of day for the people that live there, and we should be considering that as well. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. So next on my list is Councillor Gray. Ben, if you would like to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I recognise the points made by other members. I've had a good read of the application. Similar to other members, I have had presentations on this in other capacities, but remained open-minded till today. I think in terms of the hours of operation, clearly we all understand that refuse trucks go out early in the morning, and they work hard throughout the day, and there needs to be a level of flexibility in order to end their operations and not hinder the ability to do that. So I appreciate they're either in offloading or they're out. And having seen some of the enforcement stuff with regards to the other sites that have dealt with waste, referencing Councillor Hodges' point regarding fires and so forth, I would hope that, and pretty much know that, there's going to be a significant number of hurdles to go through, additional hurdles which have been added as a result of things that have been learned from other facilities where fires and so forth have taken place. In the context as was laid out by Kerry in terms of at the planning stage, I am comfortable with the layout, and I am comfortable with how the facility is within its own boundaries is looking to facilitate this. In order to have source separated recycling in Penarth and the Eastern Vale, we need a facility. Clearly, the council needs a facility such as this to be located in and around this kind of an area. Having read the report and seen all of the things there, and putting confidence in the licensing arrangements that will be in place and the ability to fix the roads, would they become worse as a result of this, I'd move officer recommendations.
Thank you, Ben. Right, I've got Pam Drake, who is next. After Pam, then it's Neil Thomas and Andrew Parker. So Pam, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I've looked at this application very closely, as is in my ward, and the objections that have been raised, as such as increase of heavy traffic. And I'll confirm what Nick Hodges said, that the road conditions are pretty bad here, because I've hard reported it myself, and I hope that will be looked at. Especially with the added heavy vehicles going on it. And a lot of the queries that I had have already been answered. I did have one concern about the attraction to the site from the pesky seagulls and rats looking for their lunch. Hopefully the seal containers and the constant manager of the site will not increase these scavengers, because that could cause another issue in the area, because they are a nightmare. I know the site is an industrial use site, but I did note that one objection was that they failed to research alternative sites. I don't know what other alternative sites will be looked at, but there will always be objections, whatever sites there's going to be anyway. Unfortunately, we need to have these facilities to process our waste, as we become a throwaway society, and we have to control this for the sake of our planet and our future generations. And we need sites like this to resource and reuse these materials rather than use landfill and stop shipping our waste abroad. I was in Malaysia in January 19, and it was dreadful to see miles upon miles of plastic waste polluting this beautiful country. And it was sad to say a lot of this waste was shipped from the UK. Now, hopefully, with all these recommendations in place, that we will have a site which is a much needed facility, as until society and business can control the use of packaging, we still will have to work to provide the best way to manage the usage of waste. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Pam. I just must remind everybody that I know we've got to take into account, as far as the council is concerned, that they have looked at other sites, but we are actually dealing with this application.
Yes, I know that, but that was, I just raised it because it was one of the objections.
I because it's a Reg 3, you know, we have that responsibility, but not in this committee type thing. Anyway, I've got Neil Thomas and then Andrew Parker.
Thanks, Chair. This site it's in the heart of a long-standing industrial estate, and commercial traffic is and will always be a feature in this area. The roads around there are pretty diabolical, but I note that we have the cabinet member responsible on this observing this meeting, and perhaps he can take under advisement that we do have concerns about the state of the roads and look to that. Wales is the third country now in the world for recycling, with ambitions to move up that league. And the Vale of Glamorgan has been one of the authorities in Wales that has been a leading driver in that as well. We have one of the best Wales. This site will add to our Project Zero ambitions to contribute to the mitigation of the climate emergency, and I support Officer's recommendations and second Ben's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Right, we have our final hands up, Andrew Parker. Andrew, and then I will kind of try and sum up and ask Kerry to give us an answer. Oh, Vicky wants to come in as well. So let's hear what Andrew's got to say. Then we'll go to Vicky and then go to Kerry just to round it all off. So, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just to give some reassurance to anybody watching this other than the committee that the flood consequence assessment has actually been very thorough. Most of it will be 1 metre above ordnance datum, and I am aware that the Assembly are actually looking at the flood risk in this area, which might improve the situation. But there is no flood risk, and there is a secondary means of exiting the site as well, which the chairman will understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Right, Vicky, I'll hand over to you, and if we need to, back to Kerry afterwards.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought, to be fair, the points that have been raised in this second section are largely around the principle of the use and the location and the conflict or tension with nearby residential, and I think that's probably fair for me to address rather than Kerry as the case officer, because these are issues that are obviously considered through the local development plan process. This is an allocated or existing industrial site. There are already significant numbers of HGV vehicles relying on access to the site via the roads that we've already discussed. So the issues on those roads need to be addressed by the Councillor's Highway Authority or Flood Authority in the first place anyway, because this is an existing industrial site. And, this new use is the right location for that kind of a site. Marcus is sharing the plan here of from the LDP allocation showing existing and proposed industrial uses, but also obviously the sites referred to in terms of the housing developments were allocated in the local development plan. So those issues around those tensions were addressed and explored and considered by the planning inspector when he considered the LDP in the first place and deemed to be uses that don't necessarily conflict with each other. Yes, you need to make sure there's appropriate mitigation in place, whether that's traffic management plans, restrictions on hours, or potentially sound insulation issues when it comes to new housing projects. And obviously, we still have to determine the planning applications, in particular for the allocated site referred to earlier, and shown, I think, in sort of reddy orange on the plan that Marcus is sharing on the screen. So, you know, into the other thing, just to echo what you said, Chair, that it was the role of the applicant in this case to consider a range of sites as to what was the most appropriate solution to meet their needs in terms of waste services, which they have obviously done in the background leading to this application. But it is not the role of the planning committee or the local planning authority to weigh up, you know, what are the better sites there may or may not be. What we need to do is weigh up whether this site and this proposal is acceptable in this location. And I think Kaylee's report and explanation goes through all of the issues that have been raised and addresses why we've concluded that this is recommended for approval. So I think that probably wraps up those latest points. I don't know, you know, Kaylee, put your hand up if you feel that you want to say anything else, or otherwise if members feel that that's not addressed.
I made a little list, and I think you've covered most of them. The other ones I think that weren't covered were vermin, and there was something else which I thought would probably be covered under our license anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
It would be an NRW license, wouldn't there, for this?
Well, the licensing deals with the management of the site, as you'd expect our colleagues to have to deal with that already. You know, there are already waste facilities, the existing tip down next door to this site. You know, those issues are clearly for them to manage throughout on a day-to-day basis. So yes, and you're quite right, those would need to be covered off in the licensing as well.
Okay, lovely. I think that has covered it pretty much. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Vic. We will take it to a vote if necessary. If somebody would like to vote against it, please show now. The people that are Nick, right? Let me clarify. Nick, you have your hand up. Can you just clarify? Do you want to vote against it or for it?
Against it.
Right. I will take a roll call vote then, because if there's one person voting against it, we need to get it clear who it is. So I'll go first, and this is for officer's recommendation. Okay. So I'm going first, and I am for. Councillor Ben Gray, your call.
For officer recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Birch, Rhiannon Birch. For. Thank you. Councillor Christine Cave.
For.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pam Drake.
For.
Thank you, Pam. Councillor Vince Driscoll.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Edwards.
For recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Hodges said against. Councillor Johnson.
Yep, against, yeah.
Against.
Yep, sorry. I had the two of you talking together then. Councillor Kemp.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
For officer's recommendation.
Councillor Rowlands.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Neil Thomas.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson. Margaret. For. Thank you. Councillor Eddie Williams.
For the officers' recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Wilson.
For officers' recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, Margarita Wright.
For.
Thank you, Margarita. Lovely. Okay, so it's clearly carried. There were 2 votes against and the rest for. I will forward that on to the clerk for completeness later on. And we will move on now to the 00231 Full University Hospital Land Dock. Now this, I believe, was called in by Councillor Carroll. Yeah, I'll just hand over to Vicky. Are you dealing with this?
Yes, I am, Chair.
Thank you, Vicky. I'll hand over to you, but yeah.
Great. Okay, very briefly then, hopefully you can see the plans on the screen here. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the site at Llandoch Hospital and familiar with where this is. You can see that this this proposal for a new endoscopy unit is basically a 2-storey extension within the grounds of the existing hospital, as shown on the site edged red here. We've got the layout plans. Bear with me, because when I touch the screen, you hear a clicking, don't you? So I'll use my mouse instead. Here's the layout plans, and these are the elevations here. Relatively straightforward utilitarian style building. You can see in the photograph on the screen, this is the area where this building is going to be, close to the entrance of the existing hospital building. I'll stop sharing my screen. I think you've all received these photos in advance, so you know where it's going to be and what it's going to look like. And as I said, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the site itself anyway. Very briefly then, yeah, it's an extension to the existing hospital facility, relatively small scale in terms of the overall size of the hospital and the uses that go on there. We've only received one objection via Councillor Carroll from a local resident raising issues around parking and access, which I'm sure are only too familiar to anyone that goes to Llandoch Hospital. Like all hospital facilities throughout Cardiff and the Vale of Morgan, it's difficult to access and park because of the nature of the use. But they are attempting to address that through a range of measures set out in the report to do with sustainable transport and travel plans. And also we're dealing with an application to retain an increased amount of parking there. So as the report concludes, it's acceptable in principle in planning terms, and the recommendation is for approval.
Lovely, thank you, Vicky. Okay, I've got Ben Gray, then Andrew Parker, and then Neil Thomas. I wouldn't have thought there's too much debate on this one, but I'll hand it over to Ben.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't want to make any sweeping assumptions, obviously, because Councillor Wilson's on Councillor Birch's feed. I don't know if Councillor Carroll is anywhere in this room and someone else's feed. But having called it in, I think it's a little disingenuous not to be here to discuss the application. I find it bizarre that we can call in an application stating public interest when the Community Council makes no note, and there's no public speakers, and there's no one else who's represented apart from one person who's made contact with a local member. The fact that local member then doesn't come along to talk about it, I don't see that this committee should spend any time discussing it, just as I said on the last time that Councillor Andrew Arty-Davis called in an application and then didn't bother to turn up to committee. So I move off to recommendations. I totally agree. There are a lot of things going on the site, University Hospital, Llandoch, and it is growing, and it is the second general hospital to the Heath, and I think there are points where we need to make sure we are having robust conversation with the health board, and I can assure you in another capacity I do. But in terms of this facility, it's a hospital facility within the hospital ground. It's infilling a bit of green space, which possibly could be repatch somewhere else, but I've got no problem recommending this for approval. And I think that we do need to have a closer look at some of our call-in procedures, because honestly, other councils don't allow call-ins without more evidence. And I certainly wouldn't call something in with one person asking, but that's for another day. In terms of this application, move off to recommendations.
Thank you, Ben. So we have Andrew Parker wants to come in. Andrew.
Yes, I second officer's recommendation, and actually I totally agree with Ben. George Carroll said he called it in on local public interest. We're now voting on a scheme which we don't understand why he called it in on local public interest. It's cost a lot of time, effort and money, and we really could do without all sitting around discussing something which in my view is politically motivated rather than under planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I have Mark and Rhiannon. Mark, I guess it's you.
Yeah, I am actually amazed that a council member has called his application in, but is not attending the meeting, nor has he given any reason why he hasn't attended today. And I am very disappointed in Councillor Carroll in doing this. But also, if you think about the application, it's a really good one in the sense that it will mean new operating theatres. There will be more capacity at the hospital. But I do think this is something that I have stressed before in many other forums, is that we do need to improve transport connections to the site. We do need to reduce the number of people using cars onto the site because we know there are issues here. And that's something that we do need to have continual discussions with the health board, as well as our partners, including Cardiff Bus, but not just Cardiff Bus here. So I do feel I'm very supportive of it, but I am very disappointed in Councillor Carroll in not attending this meeting.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. Okay, so we've had a mover and a seconder. I'm guessing
Councillor Rowlands has indicated, Chair.
Oh, Councillor Rowlands. Yeah, okay, Councillor Rowlands, come on down.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to raise, the issue that we all know that, councillors aren't obliged to come and speak of planning. So the argument of councillors previously saying, he should be coming.
Sorry, Leighton, have you got something to say on this application? Or
I do have something to say on the application. The application, it will, I sort of welcome the application actually, but I do have concerns about the traffic, and I know it's not really a planning issue, but I don't think you actually raised it in relation to the other speakers. They didn't talk about planning issues. Councillor Wilson just didn't talk about planning issues. So, I find it very bizarre how.
Okay, can we have your planning issues, please? Because we've wasted a lot of time debating this when it shouldn't even be here.
Well, you shouldn't have asked Councillor Wilson, Gray, or Parker to speak.
I didn't ask them, but I'm.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, Leighton. Thank you very much. I will take this to the vote. Any dissenters against officer's recommendation? Thank you all. We will take that as a unanimous vote. Okay, so we will move on to 0029.
I'm off now, Chairman.
Sorry? Oh,
No,
yes.
I'm off now.
See you, Nick.
Thank you. Thanks for attending, Nick, and see you next time. So it's, 2954, 14 Friars Road. This has come to committee, obviously, because it's a councillor's application. I believe Vicky is going to run through it for us.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very simple application, so I don't think I'll go to the trouble of sharing plans and photographs. You will have had the opportunity to see those in the Planning Committee report, I think. This is a relatively simple domestic extension for a loft conversion with 2 dormer windows. Normally, we might have slight issue with a box dormer on the front of a nice traditional Victorian property like this. However, it has been granted permission before, and you'll see from the photograph in the report that the neighbours got something very similar, and that for that reason we're satisfied that the design is okay in this location. So recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Yes, Chair. As I have with previous applications, that this would have been approved by officers were it not for the applicant being a member. There's no objections in it, and I move off to recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
I'd second it. And actually, if you look at the photograph on page 130, it actually will give a bit of sensibility to the fact that you have 2 dormers exactly the same rather than the incongruous, one without it. So I second it as well. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, we've had a mover and a seconder. Are there any dissenters who would not vote for officer's recommendation? Okay, that's it. Clearly passed, unanimous decision. So I believe I don't have any urgents, I don't have any part 2s, and I don't have any urgent part 2s. So I will thank you all. I would thank our officers, and we'll see you again very shortly. Thank you all. Good night.
Yep. Good night all. Yep.